Hello and welcome to the very first episode of What's Cooking with Meg, my new show where I talk about what I'm cooking in my kitchen as well as what's cooking in the real estate market. The main reason I decided to do these videos is we're all stuck in quarantine, right, due to the virus, and everyone that knows me knows I love to cook. And since we're kind of stuck at home, nothing to do, cooking has kind of been my outlet to stay busy, to feel productive. And then when you sit down to dinner with your family, or in my case, with my husband, it just feels nice to have something that nourishes the soul. So I figured, since it's my first episode, I am queen of the pasta. So I decided today I will show you how to make fresh pasta dough. It's super easy, something you can do with the kids at home, keep them busy. I'm not doing it the old school Italian grandma way where you make a well with the eggs and you slowly do it. As much as I like to cook from scratch, that's just not me. So I have my handy dandy KitchenAid stand mixer. And that's what we're going to use today to make the dough, and then later I have an attachment that I'm going to put on here that helps me roll the pasta out and cut it. Since I cook solo, I find that the old school hand crank pasta machine is great if you have help. And as you can tell, I'm completely alone, so I need the machine to kind of be my second set of hands. But we'll get to that in a minute. So starting off, we're going to make our pasta dough. Since we're kind of in a food shortage right now, you can totally use all-purpose flour for the pasta dough, but since I do pasta a lot, I am going to use two different mixes today. So I have durum flour, which is a really finely milled flour, as well as a 00. So I just kind of use the best flour possible because, I don't know, I think it makes a better product. But when I'm out of this, I use all-purpose flour, so either will do in a pinch. But if you are going to use some different flour, my mix is half and half. So I'll do half durum and half 00. I also use a kitchen scale when it comes to baking. You don't have to, but I just think it's easier to weigh your ingredients out. That way you know with different flours, it's equal, because everything kind of weighs differently. So let's start off with the durum. So I think I do a cup. So if you don't have a scale, do a cup. But when I measured it last time, it was about 165 grams. So let's pour this out and see what we got here. And it's okay if you don't have it on the nose. Like right here it says 168. It's fine, don't worry about it. It's not chemistry. We can be a little imperfect, okay? And then I'm gonna do my 00. And again, this is something you guys could do old school style on the counter. There are tons of YouTube videos that show you how to do it. I just don't have the patience by myself, and I don't feel like cleaning up since I'm the only adult in the house. But if you guys wanted to kill some time with the kids, it's a great option to make it old school grandma style. Okay. So I have my dough hook attachment on my mixer. That's what we're going to use to mix the dough today. So once you have your 2 cups of flour in there, you're going to get the eggs going. So I use 3 eggs lightly beaten for this recipe. Forgot my fork, let me grab it. And then there's going to be some olive oil and of course salt. You can't cook without salt. I've always tried to master the one-handed crack. I just can't do it, and I'm not going to make a mess on my first episode without today. Maybe by the end of my series, I'll be able to do the one-hand crack. And even though we're in Corona times, it's still super important to wash your hands. So if you have little kids doing, after you touch the eggs, you're better off washing your hands. Okay, all right. So when it comes to the olive oil, it's usually about 1 or 2 tablespoons. You don't have to measure it out exactly. I mean, you know, if you're doing it the first time, you might want to measure it out just so you kind of know what to look for. And then once you get pretty good at it, like I do, you can just eyeball. But let me get my measuring spoon out. All right. So we have our flour in here. I'm just going to put it on the stir setting just to kind of get the flour incorporated before I ramp it up a little bit and add in the eggs. So when you add in the eggs, you want to do it slowly and you don't want to overwhelm the dough. So you want to make sure that you give it, just doing a pinch of salt right now, just want to give it some time to get to know each other in the mixer and go from there. All right, let me get a small dish for my olive oil. You'll be surprised at how easy fresh pasta is. Everyone always thinks it's really difficult. It's not. I definitely had some blunders the first few times I've done it. And I think it really because I wasn't trusting my gut. You know when your flour and your dough is not coming together properly. And I think it's just really learning to cook is learning how to troubleshoot and kind of go on the fly. And being in real estate, things are always changing and my deals are always evolving. That I think I've just gotten good at not worrying about what I intentionally had set out to do as opposed to what's actually happening now. All right, so we're gonna add in some of the egg now. Slow and steady. Just do it nice and slow, drizzle it in. I added in the salt with the flours. I could have put it with the eggs, but I decided against it. Now while that's mixing, it actually almost looks like the well that Grandma would make in the bowl, which is kind of cool. The eggs are in the middle, and the flour on the sides is just kind of falling in. You can help it by getting a little spatula, which I think I'm gonna do, and just try to help it along. Too bad I can't show you what it looks like in here, but just go slow, trust your gut, and now I'm gonna slowly drizzle in the olive oil. Always try to use high quality olive oil and high quality flour when you can. It'll just give you a better product. But again, we're in quarantine times, so whatever you have on hand is fine. All right, we're gonna let that mix, bump it up a little. All right, so right now it's looking a little dry. I'm gonna let it mix and then maybe add in a couple splashes of water. Usually when I put the olive oil in a little like ramekin like this, when I need to add more water, I just put it in here so you get some of the leftover olive oil. So much of cooking really is just comfort, and when you do it a few times, you kind of know what to look for. Like I said, this is looking a little dry, so I'm gonna add in some more. And the best part is, if you put in too much water, just add in more flour. If you put in too much flour, just add more water and oil. You really can't go wrong with pasta. All right, so it's starting to come together. It's looking a little shaggy, but I think with that little bit, it'll come together. I'm actually gonna stop, get my spatula again, and I'm gonna just kind of move everything around. See, when you use semolina and durum flour, you get this beautiful yellow color, which you don't normally get when you just use all-purpose flour. But again, whatever you have on hand will make good pasta. Don't worry about getting the best of the dough. Do this a few times and then get some fancy flour like myself. Okay, I'm gonna put this back down. Drizzle in some more water. I'm gonna get my saran wrap ready because you have to let this rest for 30 minutes and really let the gluten develop. So once it starts to form a ball, which it's going to, you're gonna see this kind of pop up a little bit and it's kind of gonna do the hula hoop. So let me get some saran wrap. Get this ready. And what's nice about making fresh pasta with your family is that there's some things that you can do now and then wait a little bit and then some stuff you can do later. So it kind of gives you an all-day task as opposed to one thing that you're doing for a little bit and the rest of the time you're bored. So it's still going to be a little sticky, but that's okay because we're going to let it rest. And then later, once we get ready to roll it out and cut it into pasta shapes, that's when we can add in some more flour and see how it goes from there. So I'm just going to do that. All right. I would say let this rest for 30 minutes, room temp. Let it relax, let the gluten develop, and then we're gonna come back, add on my cool attachment, and we're gonna roll out some really good pasta. Okay, we're back. So it's been 30 minutes, we let the dough rest. I wiped down my countertops nice and clean, because this is gonna be like our main workstation once we roll out the dough. I'm gonna pour myself a glass of wine because it's quarantine, and I feel like you can't make pasta without having some wine. So I'm almost gonna give myself a little splash. I feel like it'll inspire me to be a better cook having some wine. Okay, So I usually weigh the dough, just have a general idea of how much it weighs so I can split it into quarters, but you don't have to do that. I split into quarters so you can make it easier to fit through the machine. You can tell the flour is beautiful, easy to work with. My hands aren't covered in dough. Once you let it sit, the gluten really does tighten up and you're usually fine. All right. So what I like to do is after I cut them into quarters, I like to just make them into kind of a flat little circle because you are going to feed it through here. So whether you're using a hand crank machine or this, you're always going to start at the widest setting. So on mine, that's level number 1. And basically you're going to put it through a couple times. They're supposed to be like, you're supposed to keep track of how many times each sheet of pasta goes through in each number and try to keep it even. I have the best of intentions to do that. I just forget. So don't worry about it. I'm not going to be super scientific with it. You just know by feel. One of the most important things to do though before, where's my flour? Before you get started on the roller is to make sure you just flour it down really well. Even kind of run it and let it move and just flour. This is why you really have to wipe down your countertops because you're basically using all of it to cook. My flour here. Okay. So like I said, this is nice and floured, this is nice and floured, and you're just gonna feed through nice and easy. So once you're feeding it through, you can tell that a little bit is a little tacky, and you don't want it tacky because you don't want it to get caught. So sometimes I just lightly do this, knock off the excess, and then feed it through again. I usually have my machine on speed 2. I don't want it to go much faster than that because I want to be able to control the flour as it goes through. Again, if I had the hand crank, this would be a lot harder. So the one thing that you should do the first time through is fold your pasta in half like that, and then I normally put it down the other way. The best part is if you're making lasagna, you're basically almost done because you're just doing it in big sheets. But today we're going to do fettuccine, because that is the one attachment that I do have. And the dough is just, you can tell, it's so easy to work with right now. I'm not having any problems, nothing sticking. So now we're going to move it on to level 2, which is a little bit tighter. And we're going to feed it through. So fettuccine, I usually do about a level 4, just for thickness. You don't want it to be too thick, but you also don't want it to be too thin. I mean, some of the beauty, in my opinion, of pasta is that al dente bite. And if you do it too thin, you're just not going to have that. Honestly, this is some of the best dough I've made. It's perfect. And you'll notice it's going to get longer and longer, which is again why I try not to do this on my own. But I can do the machine on my own, no problem. All right, we're going to feed through one more time on the second level. I'm just trying to get the sheets a little bit wider, and you can tell that that just did that. They're much, much wider now. Okay, feed it through. All right, feeling a little tacky, so I'm just gonna do a quick little rundown of this. And if you notice some seams, I don't know if it'll pick it up on the camera right there, that's okay. When you put it through at a tighter level, all that will get worked out. All right, now we're on with thickness number 3, and we're gonna feed it through. Oh, it's beautiful. One more time. I'm even gonna say, I think I'm good after this. I don't think I wanna do it any thinner. The dough is just absolutely perfect. Thank goodness it's cooperating with me today. Dough smells fear, so you have to be careful. All right. And that's your sheet. Don't worry about it being perfectly square. I never worry about it. This is rustic cooking. You're not in a restaurant. You're not making money off this, so it doesn't need to be perfect. All right. I'm going to switch the attachments now. We're going to put the fettuccine on, and I'm going to show you how to feed through the machine. And then I'm still working on my pasta formation, but that's the next step. So I'll put this on, and then we'll get to making the fettuccine. Okay, so I rolled out the rest of the pasta, and I'm going to show you how to do the fettuccine part. So I already have the attachment on here. I floured it real good. One word of advice. When you're making your fettuccine, you have to think, like, do you want pasta this long, or do you want to maybe cut it in half? Oh my goodness, I almost just stabbed my dough. Sometimes it's just easier to cut it up now into smaller pieces. So when you run it through the machine, you're not getting fettuccine that's this long that you're trying to dry, and that later on you're going to try to eat. So I usually cut them into more manageable sizes. So I make this big, I make the pasta, it's not too long. Okay. This is the fun part. I love this part. I feel so professional when it comes out like perfect fettuccine. I'm like, wow, I did that. Which is also a big reason why this can be really fun with your kids. It gives them a sense of purpose and a sense of accomplishment. And maybe in a couple years, if the kids get really good, you can make dinner. I mean, they can make dinner and you can go sit on the couch and watch TV, which I think would be great. Okay. So again, I do low speed. I make sure this is flour. As you can tell, I'm absolutely covered in flour, but it's the cost of doing business. All right, speed 2, go nice and slow, and just feed it through. So sometimes you'll see this where like a noodle gets a little weird. That's okay. Again, we're not in a restaurant here. We're not on Top Chef. No one's critiquing you. But every now and again, you'll get like a little weird noodle. That's fine. I call that pasta character. Doesn't need to be perfect. So this is what you want to do. You want to lightly flour it when it's in your hand so it doesn't stick. And then try to make a little bit of a nest. So this is kind of how you're going to dry it. I've been told to leave it in the fridge uncovered on a wire rack so the air can get below, and that's the best way to dry it. But if you're doing this right before dinner like I normally do, you can just kind of let it sit on the counter and then toss it into the hot boiling water. Fresh pasta cooks really fast, so do not walk away. I would say this may be a minute or two, if even. The thing is, you don't want to slave all day in the kitchen and then have soggy pasta, so please watch this when you go to cook it later. All right, let's go. Speed 2, once again. Dust with some flour. And then, oh, that was a good one. I did that one well. I struggle, I'm telling you, making these little pasta nests I do not do well at. So that made me happy that I did that well. All right. And if this happens where you get like a noodle or two stuck, just grab a little bit of flour and sometimes it'll just feed itself. If not, just pull on it. Okay. Beautiful. And our last one. Again, sometimes you're going to get some funky noodles. That's okay. We're looking for deliciousness, not perfection. So what that's probably telling me, what the dough's telling me, is that it was just too wet and that I should have had it a little more floured. All right. And there you have it. Obviously, this is not all of the pasta. This is only a little bit that I did for you guys at home. But if you do the full pasta that we made before, it should be enough for your family. Depends on how much pasta you eat, though, because me and my husband eat a lot of pasta, so the amount that we made before might not be enough for your family. It just depends on how much you guys eat. But here you have it. Let this dry a little bit, toss it in some nice salted pasta water, and have a delicious dinner. I think next time I will do maybe some of my sauces, so you can make fresh pasta and then make some of my sauce that I've worked very, very hard on. Well, thank you for tuning in to my very first episode. On a more serious note, I just want to tell everyone out there that's watching that if you feel some anxiety or uncertainty right now, it's totally normal. Feel free to reach out. If you want to talk pasta, I'm game. If you want to talk food, I'm game. And if you want to talk real estate, I'm here. I know a lot of people have had plans to buy in the spring or list their home in the spring, and there's been so much uncertainty that I know that a lot of people are anxious right now about their future plans. So if you're on the fence and you don't really know, is now the time to buy, is now the time to list my home, reach out. We'll do a little Zoom call or a phone call, and we'll talk about what fits your needs and how we're keeping buyers and sellers safe right now in a very uncertain time. But enjoy pasta, drink some wine, enjoy your family. This will be something that we look back on and laugh. But right now, let's get through it together, eat some great food, and we'll talk soon. Have a great day. Enjoy.